But I think the development of full artificial intelligence will spell the end of the human race.
It's a flying object and we don't know what it is. I would hope somebody's checking it out.
I don't know if it was a rocket or whatever, but it could be fast, almost the direction. It was too fast to be an airplane.
I'm glad the Pentagon is looking at this, because if it poses a threat, I want them on top of it.
Well, the craft generates its own gravitational field.
So you said there's lights in the sky?
The internet has become the command center for criminals and terrorists.
911, what's your emergency? I need help, please help me!
Aliens won't let it happen. You know, that's what we're instructed to say.
Roswell, Area 51. Alien kept deep under the ground.
1, 0, 1, 1, 0.
Doesn't have your best interest in mind. The government is self-serving. You're here for a reason. You're listening to Troubled Minds Radio. Broadcasting live from a secret bunker just off the extraterrestrial highway. Somewhere in the desert sands outside of Las Vegas. From somewhere in space-time, loosely labeled Generation X on planet Earth. Asking questions of you in earnest into the digital darkness. Well, good evening and welcome to Troubled Minds Radio. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rumble, X, Twitch, and Kick. We are broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting out of Las Vegas, Nevada. And, of course, 88.4 FM, Auckland, New Zealand. Tonight, we get weird. Many nights we get weird. It is really part of what we do these days. But I was thinking, and that's sometimes is calling for trouble. Stop thinking, Mike. But I was thinking about our psyche and monsters, and why we continually fill it with sort of a placeholder and then refill it with something else, not just every decade, but almost seemingly every year. It's a weird thing. As I was kind of rolling through this, yes, the camera is broken again tonight. Sorry about that. I tried very hard before we started here, and I just can't get this damn thing to work. It's like a software error. They're running in a wrong sequence, and so everything breaks, and then I have to shut it all down and then bring it all back, and never mind, I'll bore you to tears with that. But I'll get it figured out. Sorry about that. I'm going to go cameraless again tonight. Anyway, so I was thinking about it, and not only do we have this monster space in our mind, and if you read the write-up, it's actually very good. I'm calling this Monster Season, The Shape of the Fear. I Actually, it's probably best for me to just read it straight instead of trying to ramble through this. The top part of this is very good, so I'm just going to just, boom, read it. Here we go. What is up? I see you guys in the chat. Thanks for being cool and chill. Here we go. So there's a slot in the human psyche that cannot stay empty. Call it the monster slot. Every culture in recorded history has filled it with something. A creature, a force, a presence that wants you, that operates by rules you don't fully understand, that can find you when you think you're safe. The specific occupant changes. The slot itself does not. For most of Western history, the slot was held by the devil and his apparatus. Not metaphorically, literally. The devil was a working explanation for crop failure, for inexplicable violence, for the neighbor who seemed fine and then wasn't. He was the external address for interior dread, the answer to the question of why evil exists and why it seems to have preferences. When the Enlightenment arrived and secular modernity began its long project of making the devil embarrassing, something interesting happened. The slot didn't close. It went looking for new tenants. And you can track the tenants by decade if you know what you're looking for. Now, we'll get into some of this as we go and some of these different decades of these monsters. But I have a larger question as we begin when you start to think about this idea of not just monster season in a decade or a monster season in a year, but the fact that we have this blank space in our mind that is always seeking the shape of this fear, the shape of the monster itself. And when the old monster is vanquished through pop culture or social media or what have you, whatever modern thing sort of comes along, there's always something that fills it. And I don't know, like now the current monster might be sort of the faceless AI thing, like the code monster. I mean, I don't know, like I'm not exactly sure. We can talk about that, what the modern current monster is, the boogeyman. But in this particular case, I think it's very clear that we've been kind of running through these spaces of monsters and changing them and actually turning this into, I don't know, like a menagerie of the denizens of evil, or, you know, in our mind space. It's just so weird. Like just a thought I had, and it was kind of going through some of this stuff. But anyway, so the vampire in this particular case emerged as a literary force in the 19th century. And that wasn't accidental. Now listen to this. Listen very carefully to this. This is wild. Dracula arrives from the East, aristocratic and ancient, feeds on the vital energy of the young, cannot enter without invitation, but is very good at getting invited. Read it straight, and it's a Gothic novel. Read it as a cultural document, and it's a detailed anxiety map of what empire looks like from the inside. The fear of what the colonial project might bring back. The terror of a predator class that has been operating so long it has forgotten it was ever anything else. The monster slot in the Victorian era was filled by the thing that drains you and calls it intimacy. Yeah, that monster right there, of course, is Count Dracula. That's the vampire. Now, again, as we go through these, kind of fill in some of the blanks with maybe something we missed here, because like I said, it's not just by decade or by era. This seems to almost change every year. I mean, we've talked about Slender Man recently, Zozo, some of these other, newer techno cryptids that are kind of being built on the internet. But also this goes back hundreds or even thousands of years with these slots being filled by these different entities. And so the main question, the one that I can't shake, of course, is why we have to have monsters at all. It's almost as if we do not create this fear basis within ourselves, then we're empty somehow. I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe I'm underthinking it. Maybe I'm thinking about it all wrong, per usual, which is a great time actually to drop all the disclaimers. There's no truth to be found here. This is just ideas. This is just kind of looking at history and the modern times and what it means to be human and through a different lens. Okay, that's it. There's no answers, just questions, just ideas, no truth to be found here. So if you're here for truth, you're in the wrong place. I say that a lot because that is the truth of this. And we're just talking about Wild Ideas by Dark of Night. As a result, we are taking your calls because these are conversations. If you want to be part of the show tonight, 702-857-6939. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. We'll put you on the show. It's as easy as that. And yeah, we're going to get back to this. Now, so not just a vampire, that's where this starts. But of course, every era has its own monster. And even some have dominated for decades and even centuries. And so what does that look like in the mind's eye? Why are these monsters really there? And what does it mean about being human? Yeah, simple, right? It's a simple premise, kind of, but also maybe not. I think maybe some of these answers or some of these ideas that come out of this might not be so obvious. But what do I know? I'm not the arbiter of truth, as I like to say. Anyway, let's get a quick word from our sponsor. In this case, that will be the Stoic Mindset. Don't go anywhere. More Troubled Minds in just one moment. Be right back. Feeling stressed, overwhelmed? In today's fast-paced world, it's easy to get swept away by our emotions. Take a breath and find your inner strength with the Stoic Minute.
You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength.
The ancient Stoic philosophers understood that we can't control everything in life, but we can control how we react.
The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts.
Focus on what you can influence. Cultivate a positive mindset and let go of what you can't change. Find your inner strength. Live each day with courage, wisdom, justice, and moderation. Embrace the Stoic virtues and find peace within. The Stoic Minute, brought to you by Jack in Oregon. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm Michael Strange. Let us continue, shall we? Okay, so that's where we start. Now, there's a couple things that came to mind as I was kind of brainstorming these ideas. Additional details regarding the vampire. Now, think of it this way. Let's throw this into the mix. So do you think Dracula works as a sort of this colonial anxiety I'm talking about, the colonial anxiety story? If Bram Stoker was Irish, like is he writing from the position of the colonized or the colonizer, or does that change the reading at all? That's a little esoteric, maybe not necessarily the more important part here. The other thing that came to mind as I was going through this is, check this out. So the vampire gets sexier every generation. Lestat, Edward Cullen, whatever. And at what point does the thing that's supposed to drain you become aspirational? And what does that say about us as part of these monsters? It's weird. So in the old way, the old space of this monster, the mind's eye of the vampire, we've turned them into these sexy things, these very good-looking entities that are so beyond human that they're just supermodel style. It's so strange. I don't know. Anyway, lots of things to consider tonight as part of this conversation. We'll get into some of these other monsters, but I don't know. How about throw it into the mix too, since we're calling this monster season tonight. What is your favorite monster? Let's throw that in as part of the discussion here. Love to hear your thoughts. 702-857-6939. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. We'll put you on the show just like this. Thanks for being patient, my man. James Salcedo, the paranormal expert at Troubled Minds. You're on with Mike tonight and everybody else. How you doing, sir? And go right ahead.
I'm okay. Hopefully my internet does not die on me like it did, like just as you started talking at the beginning of the show. So, but glad to be here.
Glad to have you. You sound fantastic. If you drop out, don't worry. I'll keep calm and ramble on, and then just pop back in when you can, and we'll try and make it work. Thanks for jumping in and out and trying already wrestling with the internet beast. Maybe that's the modern monster, huh? Is the internet itself?
Yeah, and or service providers. I mean, and their reliability or lack thereof. But yeah. If I just suddenly stop talking, just keep on going, and I'll jump back in when I can. I'm just trying to think of my favorite monster. I don't really know if I have one, but I'm just thinking of, the way, like you talked about, like with vampires and stuff. I mean, there's entire stories in fiction now where vampires are heroes in stories where they sort of fight against other monsters or just regular people that have a ton of power and money and sort of like superheroes in a way now. I mean, you have Blade from Marvel. Of course, he fights other vampires, but still, it's monsters now are not just all negative, so to speak, which is really fascinating. Even when they are still scary, they're sort of like anti-heroes in a way.
Yeah, well said. And that has changed entirely. The entire morphology of the vampire itself is flipped on its head, and we're looking at these things now in different ways. And Blade is another good example there, right? Of the vampire, like you said, fighting the bad guys now. Now we're like, okay, so the old monster is now on our side because we sort of conquered it in our psyche, in our collective mind's eye. But then, but what does that mean? Just because we've conquered it, does it stop being evil, or have we accepted the evil monster as part of us now, synthesized it, and then we've moved on to the next? It's a weird thing to think of, huh?
Yeah, it is. I mean, even with that character, and I mean, he is part vampire, I believe it part, or maybe I think it's. I'm not really super familiar with that character, but he does fight against other vampires, and so yeah, it's just all these things, I'm thinking of there's werewolf heroes. There's just all these kinds of characters in fiction now that are said to be heroes. But I don't know. I'm thinking that with me, my favorite, and I don't even know if I'd call it a monster, but just the idea of like in some people's minds, the idea of Sasquatch out in the wilderness, because there are some rare accounts of that entity being negative. Not many, not a lot compared to the rest, but I've always been fascinated by who or what is that out there.
Yeah, Bigfoot's another one too, because I think that's even it's certainly a modern monster. The cryptid space. Maybe that kind of filled in maybe the late '60s as maybe the mind's eye, sort of in the Bermuda Triangle idea. I don't know. It's like a weird thing how you can kind of pinpoint a particular year or a group of years and say, yeah, definitely that was Bigfoot's heyday, right? And I think it would probably be right after that Patterson-Gimlin film, and sort of the Bigfoot fever took off from that point. But the interesting aspect of Bigfoot in particular, as a cryptid or a monster in this case, is that it's ancient. This is an old idea. So this is something that they've talked about in native traditions forever, the world over. The Yeti and the skunk ape and all the different parts of the world and the places they name this thing different titles. It's interesting that we have I don't know, like maybe so we've synthesized a vampire. They're all sexy now and fighting for us, but we haven't really synthesized Bigfoot. It's still sort of the scary hairy man in the forest.
Yeah, and it's funny because there's that idea of it, but then so many accounts you hear, it can still be scary, a frightening experience to have, but that's not always because Bigfoot is necessarily chasing after you. It's just you're not expecting for it to exist in many cases, for many people that have not heard of any of that, or just it does come toward you, but you're so frightened because it's not supposed to exist that in and of itself freaks you out, and then you back away. But yeah, there's vampires too. Also interesting because there's different versions of vampiric creatures around the world as well. I can imagine the whole colonialization aspect of Dracula being part of that. It's not by far. It's not the only type of vampire out there that has been in folklore and is still out there.
Yeah, well said. And like the vampire is an interesting one, like I said, because it keeps changing. It's this morphine entity. It's old though. It's an old story. Coming from the East and Vlad Dracula and all the rest of that. That kind of modernized what those old bloodsuckers you're describing are and how we identify with it today. But even more fascinating that all these other monsters have kind of come and gone too. And I don't know, like I said, I was thinking about the modern monster in this space and kind of made the joke about the internet. But maybe it is. Maybe it's sort of this Lovecraftian black box entity that's amorphous, and we don't know what to call it specifically, but we feel that it's there. I mean, the unnamed monster. I don't know. We don't have to touch that, but continue to think about it. And what do you think today's monster is? I don't know. I think there's probably a lot of answers there, but there's certainly one that's on the top of our mind in the zeitgeist. Fire stuff, James. What else you got? Go ahead.
Yeah, it could just be the whole surveillance state. If you think about it, just cameras everywhere. That idea of you're always being watched somewhere, wherever you go. And you don't know who exactly is watching. But again, so much of that is tied to the internet as well. But happy to sit in and comment when I have anything and go from there.
Okay, you are the best. That's James Salcedo. You know him, you love him, of course, the glue of the show, the paranormal expert of troubled minds, a dear friend, all the things. And give him a follow before I forget. I'll tell you at the end, of course, too. But SalcedoParanormal.com. That's SALSIDO Paranormal.com. Go check that out and go give him a follow in all the places. Check out his Discord, buy his books, follow the podcast, listen to all the things, check out his YouTube channel. So much of that stuff is free. Please help our friends. That's what this is all about. Okay, so now back to this, back to the write-up. Now, so we come out of the idea of that Victorian vampire, okay, in our mind's eye, the shape of this fear in that case. But think of it this way. Now, the atomic age, and this is straight from the write-up again, produced a different shape. The creature features of the 1950s are almost too obvious in retrospect. Irradiated ants, mutated fish, things that should be small made enormous by forces that have been unleashed without anyone fully understanding what they were unleashing. Godzilla, for instance, is not subtle. Neither is them. The monster slot in the Cold War era was filled by the consequences of the scientists' bargain. The thing that emerges when you split something that was not meant to be split. The body horror was literal. The anxiety was about what the body of civilization looked like from the outside after Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So I'll leave that there for a second, and we'll get into the slasher, of course, of the 80s and the rest of it. Maybe even the dream entity of Freddy Krueger. That was like, he had his moment in the 80s for sure. I mean, there's a lot here. And so the main question is very specifically, why do you think that we continue to fill the monster void? This thing I'm calling the monster slot in our mind's eye. It's almost as if we can't leave it alone and we have to replace it no matter what. It's weird, right? I mean, not only is it goes back to the oral tradition, like I always talk about, and the storytelling aspect of, we like to be scared. I think that's one of the most obvious answers here. But beyond that, when you think about all the different sort of forms that this fear has taken, it's all over the map. And it is, always predatory. It is not always supernatural directly, but kind of a mix of some supernatural aspect, something you cannot name the rules of or understand its actual, habits or, where it lives or things like this. I don't know. It's really strange. But beyond that, then suddenly it changes. It morphs. It becomes something you can't really describe. And then it just turns into something else. I don't know. And so what actually, as part of it, changes? Like, do you think it is sort of we become the fear factor of it has been defanged per se, has been we're over it, like society's like, nah, I'm over vampires, no thanks. And so you got to reboot them as these sexy teenagers or whatever they are, right? And I'm talking, of course, about what's that movie, Twilight. I don't know, I'm not a fan of that movie. I've seen half of it, part of it. They lost me when the vampires were playing baseball. I was like, no, I'm out. Not watching another minute of this. I got other things to do, like, trim my toenails. Forget this. I'm out. Anyway, but you get the idea. It's strange how we have to reboot the horror, and even in that space, it's not scary anymore. I don't know. Maybe we do get to the point where we're just kind of over it, and then have to replace it with something that is scary. I don't know. It's a weird one, but anyway, so love to hear your thoughts again. So we're talking I'm calling this monster season, the shape of the fear, but not just your favorite monster, but how come we seem to rotate them in the zeitgeist, and everything seems to have its time. We started with the vampire, of course, and then we got to this, the 50s and the atomic era, and this, this sort of unsettled thing that you create with science that becomes, Godzilla or something. I mean, it's so strange that those map almost directly and easily. So you can kind of point to them and go, well, this is where that anxiety came from. But the secondary part of it is, well, when did we get over that anxiety and then replace it with something else? I don't know. I don't know the answers to those things. This is probably like you could probably spend months putting together like a perfect example of all these things I'm talking about, and when the tide turned in the mind's eye of the human zeitgeist. I don't know. I think it's interesting to kind of kick the cosmic soccer ball around, like I talk about and like we talk about. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you want to be part of the conversation tonight, we're here with James Salcedo, of course. We got Daryl coming up after the break, and your calls as well. What do you know about this? And why did the vampire reboot turn them into to sexy people? It's weird, right? What was the guy with the six-pack abs in there? It's like, anyway, I digress. I didn't like the movie. I'm sorry if you did. And, I'm not trying to be offensive here. But anyway, Monster season, The Shape of the Fear. What do you guys know about it? That's what's on my mind tonight. Why not, right? And I've got a massive thread coming. Shout out to Night Stalker. He created a monster. Speaking of monsters, and Night Stalker's amazing. But he if you guys have been following the Discord, I do recommend you please follow the Discord, troubledminds.org. Click the Discord link on top. It's free. It's a chat client, a voice client, completely free, as I said. Come check out Derek's thread in there, and we'll get to that eventually. I want to let him. I don't want to steal his thunder entirely, but it's part of a larger thread in my mind. But anyway, we got that coming in the next several weeks. But right now, we're talking monsters. What do you know about it? 702-857-6939. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. We'll put you on the show. It's as easy as that. We're here with James tonight and taking your calls. And Daryl is up next. Yes, my camera's broken and sorry about that. It does happen. I'll get it fixed. But this is Troubled Minds. I'm Michael Strange. Be right back. More on the way. We got Daryl coming up in your calls as well. See you on the other side of the break.
You're tuning into Troubled Minds, the show where mystery knows no bounds. Stay tuned for revelations that'll keep you questioning the fabric of reality.
Every era gets the creature that it needs. Not chosen, not designed, just what the dark agrees. The Victorian night had something at the throat. The Cold War split the atom and the monster took the note. Chorus. Monster season never really ends. The slot stays open, just keeps changing friends. Same hunger, different face upon the door. What are you afraid of? What are you afraid of now? Verse. The suburb had a killer and he knew your name. The zombie kept consuming long after it came. The devil got embarrassed, so he changed his coat. Now something in the signal has us by the throat. You're spoken. The function doesn't close, it goes looking. Whatever you start believing in, the slot went out and found a replacement. The gray, the skinwalker, the simulation. You can't log out of same report, different century. Something that wants you specifically, operating by rules you don't fully understand. Monster season. Monster season. The case at the end of the hall. The light is on, but nothing's in it at all.
Indeed. What's up? Hope everybody's well tonight. I see there Dragon Rose. What's up, Joe in Florida? We got Steve in England. What's going on, my man? Matsal, Satya, Apoc, Daryl, Herschel, and Joey. Don't panic. What's up, folks? Hope everybody is doing great. What is going on? If I miss anybody in the chats, just say hi and I'll say hi back. Trying to get everybody in here. Fred got first. Yep. I hate the Dodgers. Got it. They're like the West Coast Yankees now, right? Yeah, boo. What's up? Hope everybody's well. James is here. I see you guys in the chat. What's up, Joey? Satya. Matsal says there's a video game called Monster Hunter and a movie starring Mila Jovovich. I like Mila Jovovich. Lilu Dallas Multipass. What's up, Richard in Texas? How you doing? What's going on? Yeah, Joey says Gremlins. That's actually a good one. We talked about that recently. And yeah, the evolution of the monster. What's up? Hope everybody's well tonight. Just doing Troubled Mind stuff. Linda, who'd I miss? Let's see. Michigander 12. I see you there. Good evening, Stephen England. What is up on all the places? Hiker was first over there on Rumble, and hello is not available. What's up, Margie? Here we go. Troubled Mind's coming up. If I missed anybody, just say hi, and I'll say hi back. Here we go. Let's do it. When I find the right button. There we go. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rumble, X, Twitch, and Kick. We are broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting. And, of course, 88.4 FM Auckland, New Zealand. Tonight, we're taking your calls as we talk monsters. Every era gets the monster it deserves. The vampire was colonial anxiety with a cape. The atomic creature was the scientist's bargain made flesh. The slasher was a suburban dream with something wrong in the foundation. The zombie is consumption that outlasted the consumer. The slot never stays empty. It just keeps finding new tenants. What does it mean that our current monsters keep changing shape before we can get a clean look at them? Love to hear your thoughts. Once again, if you want to be part of the conversation, 702-857-6939. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. Love to hear your thoughts on this. Anything to add, James, that came to mind? If not, we're going to go to Daryl.
Just that I think it's going to be always a combination of sort of human and or animal characteristics that make a lot of monsters, it seems. That, and also it makes you think of the whole X-Men thing, where, again, part of that whole series of comics, that whole idea is they are struggling. They are people, but they're struggling not to be seen as monsters by everyone else that does not have their mutations that give them the abilities that they have. So, but yeah, just all those different elements together can form a lot of different types of monsters right there.
Yeah, and the monsters are endless too. I think if we just spent all night listing everybody's favorite monsters and then their second, third, and fourth and fifth most favorite monster, we could probably go all night because it's literally endless. And you get back into mythology and folklore, and that you could go forever, which is really what Troubled Minds is really kind of all about. Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts. 702-857-6939, calling this monster season, the shape of the fear. Let's go to Daryl in New York. What is going on? Welcome to the thing. How are you tonight? And go right ahead. Daryl.
Okay.
There we go.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear. You sound fantastic.
Terrific. Good topic. I like this topic a lot. It made me think about like what we were really afraid of, like during certain, periods of history, etc. During the bubonic plague, wasn't everybody afraid of dying then? And they were dying. Are we really afraid of Bigfoot like on a daily basis? But the season that they put the movie Jaws out, remember that? Weren't we all afraid of sharks?
Yeah, I think certainly sharks had their time in the sunlight. And what was that? That was probably the late 70s, like 77 when Jaws came out or something? Yeah, 75 maybe?
Yeah, we're definitely afraid of, and that stuck. I mean, a lot of people are still afraid of sharks. They don't want to go in the ocean, etc. And it's understandable. I've seen a lot of sharks in the waters. When I've been swimming, I'm like, whoa, you don't really want to swim with them. Swimming with the dolphins, but not the sharks, But I was listening to somebody, I can't remember exactly when or where, but they were saying, what are people's biggest fears today? And today might have been 5 years ago. But they were saying the most popular one, believe this or not, during that study or that poll, was the zombie apocalypse. Like, really? Are people really afraid of a zombie apocalypse? I mean, or what it signifies, maybe? I don't know. I found that, curious, but the more I thought about it, maybe we were all turning into zombies, A Night of the Living Dead, that was a very scary scenario, where what's that, The Walking Dead? That whole series. I mean, can you imagine? But are you really afraid of that? And I think, I'm going to say something. Right now, I think we're afraid of like germs. We're afraid of plagues. We're afraid of viruses. And soon we're going to be afraid of aliens, maybe. I think it's whoever's writing the narrative is going to be telling us what to be afraid of, you know? We were afraid of communists. We were afraid of witches. At one time, we were burning witches. And we were, you know, executing communists. I mean, this is all like in phases. Who do we victimize, you know? Who are we going to make our next victim? And what is going to be the brunt of our fear? And what are we really afraid of? We were afraid of nuclear bombs, right? We were afraid of the Cold War. They apparently, I was reading one of your recommended reading things, and you know, there was a generation that was so petrified because they were, you know, really sticking the fear into them on a daily basis. You know, duck and cover. You know, it was imminent. The nuclear war would be imminent, etc. So I think there's like, you know, pick the season, and that's your fear du jour, the fear of the decade or the fear of the century, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And it, like I said, it keeps changing too. I think, you know, it's the ever-changing boogeyman, and we've talked about that in the past as well. But recognize too that the devil kind of keeps making its way back. So there was, like you said, Jaws had a moment there, but so did The Exorcist.
The Exorcist, oh
exactly.
yeah, big time.
Yeah, The Exorcist was a big one.
People were very frightened.
Yeah, go ahead.
Frightened of being, yeah, people were afraid of getting possessed. Oh, you think I'm possessed? You know, she must be possessed. Yeah, but you know, I remember as a little girl, there was always a monster in the closet. Like, is that like something you're born with? You're afraid of the monster in the closet? The boogeyman, like who made up the boogeyman? But is there like a universal boogeyman? Are you born with a fear of the boogeyman? Like, is it something, I mean, a very little, a very young girl, who gave me the idea of a boogeyman? Maybe my big sister, actually.
But I think it's also sort of a healthy dose of the stranger danger that parents, you know, kind of instill in us as well. It's like, you know, hey, the neighbor might be cool and chill, but the neighbor might also be the boogeyman as well. So you just got to always sort of be on your guard, especially as a child when you're, you know, your BS detector is really high, but also you're sort of so naive that you want to trust a lot of people when maybe you shouldn't when you're kind of, you know, weigh 45 pounds and can't really run fast.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sure. Now, you know, you should definitely put the fear of pedophiles into your children. You don't want them to go off with anybody just because they have a puppy or something, you know? But, the other thing I'm saying, now I'm afraid of things like genetically modified mosquitoes and ticks that are going to give me an allergy to meat or something like that, you know? That's scary. And nano robots that can, you know, make you change your mind or fear something or jump off a building or jump off a bridge. I mean, the mind control thing is very scary to me. That's a big monster, and I think that's a real one, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's certainly a troubled minds monster. That the propaganda space, the mind space of MK Ultra for the masses. Right. We always talk about that, and so I think maybe James had it right. I think there's probably like a multifaceted construct of what that modern fear is, and certainly it's the surveillance state is a big part of what that is, because you're always you're always being watched, and there is that anxiety we've talked about, you know, kind of in the past. That observer effect is not just sort of the quantum thing, but it's also that if you observe, you know, animals in nature, they react differently. They just know they're being watched, and they're not actually in their natural habitat anymore, because who will watch the watchers. It's definitely a weird thing, and it goes with people too. I can imagine, and now this is very social credit score-esque, but I can imagine, you know, in a society removed of cameras entirely, that we might misbehave more. You know what I mean? I don't know. Like, where does that kind of fit into the space here? I don't know if that's the case. I'm just saying, you know, like I can see that argument, because you're going to get caught. But, you know, in the old days, certainly that there was no cameras, and so you could get away with a ton more.
Yeah, but did we? And, like, weren't the streets safer? Didn't you go out at night and you didn't have to worry about anything? You know, was there really was there more crime back then without the cameras? I don't think so. You know, you just have to listen, the crime has gotten so much more sophisticated. You don't need a camera, you just need a computer, you know?
Yeah, well said. Well said. It's it is a different time. It's a different time in a different place. So, I mean, to kind of be able to compare the two, I think is not fair. But It's worthy of the discussion. I think definitely anyway, because you're right.
Sure.
You're absolutely right that, when I was younger, you could be, 15 and go outside and just kind of be out at night and it was fine, no problems, no issues, no, really. I mean, there were still scary things happening and scary people, but for the most part, it seemed like it was kind of under control. But maybe that's just sort of our nostalgia meter kind of telling us that, and maybe it wasn't at all. Who really knows, right?
Oh, I don't think they're. You know what I'm afraid of? What I'm afraid of is like, if things really go bad, like it'll be like what was that movie Blade Runner, where like there was just nothing, like nobody was controlling anything. It was just total anarchy and chaos, and people are just like looking to find food or shelter or whatever. To be in like that kind of situation where you're really fending for yourself. Anyway, that's jumping ahead. Jumping ahead of the game there.
That's okay.
But that's what I'm afraid of is when you lose society, you lose. They just stop our infrastructure. We have no infrastructure at all, and you just have to fend for yourself. And what if you don't have a motorcycle?
Right, or a jousting lance for your motorcycle.
Right, or anything. God, I mean, it's scary. It's scary. Another fear was if you were like a man, and you were like, just after puberty, you were probably really scared of getting drafted and having to fight in a war. I mean, imagine if they reinstated a draft. I don't even know who would want to be in the army anyway, but I'm not saying anything. Should be proud to serve your country, etc. But, who wants to fight in a war? That would be a big fear if I was a young man,
Yeah. It's actually well said. It never bothered me so much. I don't know, because, there were no particular wars going on, no sort of whisper of drafts happening. But, certainly you become of age and you have to sign up for that. And that's definitely a real thing. Never bothered me, but maybe, just maybe, it was kind of a latent nightmare-esque, kind of thing that was kind of way deep down there that you just kind of put so far away. You're like, no wars in my lifetime. It's not going to happen. And then, here we are again, more endless wars. I mean, not to get political,
endless wars.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. It's terrible. Imagine if you're forced to serve. I mean, in most countries in Europe, you have to serve. You have to join the army at a certain age, and I guess in some countries, even the women have to do it. So we're kind of lucky that they've got rid of the draft. But there was a point where they were drafting people. If your number came up, you were going. You were going to serve, and that was it. Or you go to Canada, or you just defect or something, whatever. I don't know. So that must have been very frightening for them. But I think our fears are created on a need to have basis. What are we going to scare them into now? Yeah. Let's scare them. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It is that control and propaganda aspect of all the things. I mean, it is definitely something that it strikes at the heart of not just this conversation, the ones we have all the time on this show. Right. Yeah. If you had to name sort of like the dominant creature of the 80s, the monster of the zeitgeist in the 80s, what stands out to you? Yeah. Was it more Freddy Krueger? Was it more Jason with the hockey mask? What kind of really stands out as the 80s to you?
The 80s, I don't know. The 80s, didn't it have also like the futuristic stuff and time travelers? There was a lot of movies like, Schwarzenegger was in, a Terminator that came back from the future, Back to the Future. There was time travel stuff that, indicated some scary stuff. There were some vampire movies, but again, they became very sexy, didn't they? I mean, we had Catherine Deneuve and David Bowie and what's his name, Brad Pitt. These are not scary people, These are kind of all very attractive vampires, right? So I don't know about that, but I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think the 80s is kind of a blur to me because, if you remember the 80s, you weren't there. Or something like that.
Or you were not old enough to get the good stuff.
Yeah, I don't have a great memory of the 80s because I was really having a lot of fun. I got to be honest with you. And I wasn't afraid of anything in the 80s. Are you kidding? I was invincible. I don't think we were afraid of much back then. There wasn't a lot to be afraid of, to be honest with you. You know?
That's a weird thing to say. Yeah, it's a very good.
Before 9/11, what were we really afraid of? Not that much, you know? I think that changed our whole paradigm, you know? That kind of brought it took away the whole world's innocence, in my opinion, you know? We lost something, you know, we lost that, you know, joie de vivre, you could say, or, you know, that carefree lifestyle that we used to enjoy and take for granted was totally out of our realm, you know?
Yeah, agreed. It is weird that something like that changes everything. And then here we are sort of living in the shadow of that still as they, you know, kind of pack on more, you know, government surveillance stuff. It's like, okay, again, not to get political, but it's just, it is what it is. It's the old bait and switch maneuver of modern politics. It sucks. And here we are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And now we could be afraid of tsunamis, meteors, climate change, aliens, alien invasions, you know, nature, whatever. You know, I think there's a lot of things, you know, brewing about, you know, potential comets. I think they keep talking about these comets, like, oh, there's one that's like 1 million miles away. It almost hit us. Like, no, it didn't. You know, that was the closest it's ever been. It was still like a gazillion miles away. I don't know. I think it's just any way to drum up fear is all good. You know, oh, that can make everybody scared. Let's go with it. You know, run with it.
Yeah, that's why I don't cover that stuff. Because literally every other week there's like, oh, we're getting close pass of a meteor is about to end all life on Earth. Oh, just kidding. It's not really that close at all. If you read all the way down to the bottom of the article, it's like, it's gonna pass on this day. It'll be 12 million miles from us. That's not that close, guys.
Yeah, right. It was in the same solar system, same galaxy.
Exactly.
Our neighbor, right? Exactly. So, yeah, that's about it. But did you hear Dr. Frankenstein? He's trying to make a new creature with a cheese body.
Oh, interesting.
It's called Frankenstein's monster.
Of course it is.
Thank you.
You're the best. Appreciate you very much. Fantastic joke as always, and great take on all the stuff there. I think let's put that into the pipe and smoke it for the conversation tonight. What was the dominant monster of the 1980s? Got a good start here with Daryl. Appreciate you very much. Thanks for the call. Always a pleasure. And you have a great night.
Thank you. You too. You too, Mike.
Thank you very much. Daryl in New York. You know, you love her. Good friend for a long time. The official cosmic comic of Troubled Minds. Please go give her a follow. You know how to do that. Just go to the website, troubledminds.org. Click on friends. Scroll down a little bit. It is alphabetical right there. Daryl right in the middle. And just click on that and follow her YouTube channel. Not only is she multi-talented, funny, obviously, smart, obviously, but also sings in English and French and has a lot of that stuff on her YouTube channel. And please do it. Please go follow her in all the places. Got some paranormal stuff on there and just Daryl stuff. Please follow her. That's what's up. I see you guys in the chat. Yeah. Anything on any of that, James? Do you have a? I know you're not quite as old as me. I'm not going to out your age here, but. Do you have a maybe in your mind's eye what the dominant 80s monster may have been?
Not really. I'm 44, so 80s I was just coming around. But I think there's a word in there that Daryl used. Great call from Daryl. She said there's a lot we can be afraid of, and I think that's the thing. There's yes, there's all the stuff that is going on, but again, that's what the media and the corporations and governments want us to be afraid of. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just thinking about 80s. I mean, yeah, I can't really think of anything because, like I said, I was still, I was born in '82. So, but I know I even as a kid, I remember seeing ads for like the Freddy Krueger and Jason movies, and I didn't care for them, just basically the way they looked even back then. But I mean, I know they were hugely popular because I mean, even as a kid, I was seeing them on TV, and there was no way I was ever going to get to watch them, at that time. So, but yeah, I think it's things do change, but also it seems like they keep on repeating themselves. I think with the nuclear stuff, with the atomic stuff, that is, I mean, Godzilla is probably the biggest, the most well-known example of that, but just creatures in general being created by nuclear disasters and or just experiments. I mean, really even just scientific experiments over time. I mean, we all heard of mad scientists, that whole idea of that. And there's even folklore in certain parts, like modern folklore, around different parts of the country and other places, I'm sure, where if there's any kind of let's say like a cryptid sighting in an area, there's this idea or this theory that, well, it must have been created by this one government installation that was, top secret and restricted and you couldn't go there, but then it got closed down, and then after it got closed down, you have all these sightings of whatever, take your pick. I think that's always been something that's been around too. I mean, that's worked its way into fiction. Stephen King used that in one of his stories. Actually, Derek and I covered it in the show The Mist. There was a government installation that was nearby, and it basically, the story goes, and it never ever describes what happened exactly, but the idea is that they were doing experiments there, and something happened there. And I'm going to be quiet now because there's an engine out there by me. I don't know what they're doing. But anyway.
We couldn't hear it at all. We couldn't hear it. You're totally good. Yeah. The interesting part about that is several things, but it's very Stranger Things, right? These things escape from a government lab or, the portal or whatever, like whatever wild thing this is. And, that was the big fear for a while. It was, does the government really have this stuff under wraps? And for me, hey, look, I started a show called Troubled Minds. So if you think that I'm, trusting any government, they don't have a really great track record with taking care of their people historically. So, I'm kind of like, let's not, put too much trust in these liars. And again, not to get political, but they're all liars. And it's so, come on now. We deserve better than that for sure. But I think, who is it? Somebody over there on Rumble said that, I don't have a favorite monster. People do a good enough job for me. Who was that? Was that maybe Margie said that a little earlier? Maybe Hello is not available. Yeah, somebody said that over on Rumble. And that makes sense because I think maybe that's it too, is that it strikes at the heart of this conversation because you can say, the slasher flick of the 80s with Jason in the hockey mask is scary. And that's true. But also behind the mask is what? Like that becomes really the question. It could be your next door neighbor. And that's the real scary part about this.
Yeah. I mean, in any amount of, like with Jason and all that, there's almost something supernatural or paranormal about how long and well they can survive. I mean, I haven't even watched the movies, but I know that, from what I've heard, Jason, why do I keep on saying, anyway, Jason gets stopped in various ways and seemingly killed, and yet he keeps coming back. And so, but beneath the mask, again, appears human. So there's that whole paradox of, is there something anomalous, paranormal about some people, or that makes them able to do what they do and be so monstrous, or is it that just they are that way, and that in itself, again, it seems like maybe a paradox there.
Yeah, exactly. And this is, like I said, back at the heart of this conversation is that there's so many moving parts with this, and it changes so often that it's hard to put your finger on exactly what the hell's happening. But certainly that sort of flow of the zeitgeist and the monster archetype it's certainly built into us. It's built into not just our storytelling, but we love being afraid. And, which is weird to me because I don't particularly like being afraid. I'm like, I don't like this feeling. Right. So I don't know. So I don't try and cook up the feeling artificially. There's enough scary stuff out there in the world that, you're always trying to be brave in the face of the world type of stuff. So I'm not trying to do any of that, but anyway, I digress. I'm calling this monster season tonight, the shape of the fear. And of course, what does it mean? And how can we continue to create these ideas in this idea space and, change what this fear is. Like we started with the vampire, got into, the Victorian vampire, got into the atomic age of, Godzilla and this type of thing of these monsters coming out of the ocean or whatever that have been created, or, there was an explosion under the ocean because they were testing nukes, and then it woke up Godzilla or created Godzilla, or you know what I mean? So certainly these different eras have these different mind spaces of what these monsters could be, that primordial fear in us that kind of generates this monster. But why does it change so often, and why are we so enthralled with it? That's what's on my mind tonight. Again, calling it Monster Season, the shape of the fear. And Daryl, by the way, sniffed it out very well, because we're going to have some alien threads coming up, because I think the modern monster, at least one of them, is certainly the gray alien. It's certainly the alien archetype. And we'll talk about it. Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you want to be part of the conversation, 702-857-6939. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. We'll put you on the show. It's as easy as that. Welcome back, Cy. I see you there. We'll get to you momentarily. We got Derek the Night Stalker coming up after the break as well. Here we go. Be right back. More Troubled Minds in just one moment. Once again, 702-857-6939. Click the Discord link at troubledminds.org. We'll put you on the show. We're here with James Salcido, of course, the paranormal expert at Troubled Minds, taking your calls, talking about Monster Season. Why exactly do we change the shape of the fear every year or more? Yeah, this is Troubled Minds. I'm Michael Strange. Be right back. More on the way.
This is Troubled Minds. Your host, Michael Strange, the master of the mysterious, is here to guide you through the shadows of the unexplained.
Let's check the news. A remote point in the South Pacific, known as Point Nemo, holds a distinction unlike anywhere else on Earth. It is so isolated that when the International Space Station passes overhead, its crew becomes the closest humans to that location. The spot was never discovered through exploration, but calculated in 1992 by a Croatian-Canadian engineer using a geospatial program to identify the single point in the ocean farthest from any coastline. That same extreme remoteness has made it the preferred target for controlled spacecraft descents for more than 50 years, with over 260 vehicles brought down in the region between 1971 and 2016. The largest object deliberately sent to that watery graveyard remains the Russian space station Mir, which made its final descent there in March 2001. Shifting to neuroscience, researchers at UCLA may have found a biological explanation for why time seems to accelerate as we age, and how to slow it down. Cognitive neuroscientist David Cluett and his team used MRI imaging to show that dopamine-producing regions of the brain activate when we encounter new experiences, and that higher activation correlates with a subjective sense of more time having passed. The findings, published in the journal Nature Communications, suggest that novel experiences do not just feel meaningful, they physically alter how the brain structures memory and time perception. Seeking out unfamiliar situations, it appears, may literally make your life feel longer. And finally, a new study is challenging one of science fiction's most beloved concepts. Research published in a leading physics journal, led by a professor at the University of Portsmouth, argues that the Einstein-Rosen bridge was never actually a wormhole, it was a mathematical description of how time itself is structured, linking two mirrored directions of time rather than 2 points in space. The team believes this reframing could resolve the long-standing black hole information paradox, suggesting that information is not destroyed but continues evolving in a time-reversed quantum state we simply cannot observe. Perhaps most striking, the researchers raise the possibility that the Big Bang was not an absolute beginning, but a quantum transition, and that our universe may exist inside a black hole embedded within a larger cosmos. Thanks for listening to the Troubled Minds Radio Network.
Yeah, how's that for the cosmic news for you? What's up? Hope everybody's well tonight. Just hanging out, doing Troubled Mind stuff. Got Derek coming up and Cy as well on the Discord. What's up, Daryl? Thank you for the call. Fantastic stuff. James, Fire, as always, you guys are the best. What's up, Derek? We got Dragon Rose, Joe in Florida. What's up, APOC? Herschel in Arizona. What's up, Matsal in California? Cy on the Discord. Joey from X and Discord over there. What's up? Hope you guys are doing great. We got Gordo Sweets is over there on Rumble. I see you guys. Nostradamus is here. What's up, Merlin Magi? Gordo. Hey, what's up? What's up, fam? We got some steam building over there on Rumble. Yeah, I hope everybody's well tonight. Just doing Troubled Mind stuff and talking about wild ideas. Who did I miss? If I missed anybody, just say hi, and I'll say hi back. Trying to do my best to keep up in all the places. Yeah, and what do you know about monsters? Right, monsters. Monsters are fun. Monsters are fun. Plum Island. Yeah, right. What's up, Richard in Texas? Yeah, I mean, and there's a ton of stuff too that kind of comes into this. Not just a nuclear fear space, but beyond that into the 80s, right? Sort of the zeitgeist changing and becoming, I don't know, like I don't ever remember specifically sort of the fear of what would you call it? The Cold War fear, right? I'm a little too young for that, of like the nuclear winter, you're kind of always hanging over your head type of thing. You know, kind of by the 80s that had dissipated somewhat after the Cuban Missile Crisis and all the rest of that. So I don't know. I mean, it's a weird thing. It's a weird space as part of this to kind of think of those backdrops of just being a human in life in those times. But I don't know, the monsters to me were quite a bit more fun. And maybe that's it. Maybe we put a face on the fear to make it more fun, to make it something we can kind of point at and identify and talk about, you know, why Godzilla is amazing or something. I mean, that makes some sense. Anyway, love to hear your thoughts. It's, you know, just me rambling up here, and me and James slaying it per usual, and taking your calls. Here we go. Troubled Minds coming up in a few seconds. Got Derek the Night Stalker. We got Cy on the Discord, and your calls as well. Here we go. Let's see. Let me find the right button. Yeah, there we go. Timing's right. Button's right. Here we go. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange. We're streaming on YouTube, Rumble, X, Twitch, and Kick. We are broadcasting live on the Troubled Minds Radio Network. That's KUAP Digital Broadcasting. Tonight, we're taking your calls as we discuss Monster Season, the shape of the fear. Now, every era had its monster. I'm still trying to decide what monster was the 1980s dominant monster. Jason with the hockey mask, the slasher, or Freddy Krueger, the dream monster? I don't really know. But anyway, that's less important than the overall arc of this conversation, which of course goes back to the very beginning, to the very first monster. And of course, when it was identified, when it was named, when it was called something, when it was given lore, and I don't know. It's a weird thing to think about, because we certainly do, what I'm calling this tonight, have this monster slot in our collective mind's eye. And it changes. It's almost as if we build these things because we want to be scared. What do you think? How weird does it get? And appreciate you guys hanging out. Anything to add, James? And we'll go to Derek in Massachusetts.
Yeah, great call so far from everyone. I'm wondering, too, if the changes happen, at least in some cases, because once we get an idea of what we think a monster is, then there's not as much mystery or as much of the unknown to it. And so it has to change. So it can be unknown so that we can be afraid of it.
Yeah, maybe. And shout out to Joey in the chat, says, I remember the drills hiding under the desk in school. Like, that was really going to help with a new kid. Funny enough, I grew up in California, so we did that not as sort of a nuclear preparation thing. It was an earthquake preparation thing. So like maybe they, you know, wink, wink told us earthquake, and maybe they meant something else. Anyway, interesting. You talk about it that way. To me, it was earthquakes, which were very real in California. Anyway, the monster season, the shape of the fear, 702-857-6939. Click the Discord link at troubleminds.org. Thanks for all the great chat out there. Go to Derek in Massachusetts, the Night Stalker.
Yep. Going on, Brutus. Great show.
Thank you very much. Welcome to the thing. How you doing? What's on your mind, my man? There's a ton here, and like, you see what I'm doing. You see what I'm cooking with here. I'm kind of leading us into this larger space that's about to happen in the next 5 weeks, which we'll talk about. I'm not going to steal your thunder. You do the thing with Ricky on Wednesday, and then we'll open it up after that. Okay. And if you want to peel out some time for a show too, yeah, you're absolutely welcome, as you know. But first things first, monster season. Welcome to the joint. What do you know about it, my man?
Yeah. Monster season. I won't touch on the aliens. We'll save that for Thursday, I guess, or for anybody else who wants to talk about that tonight. And yeah, check out Ricky's show tomorrow night. And we'll give a little preview for what was coming on Troubled Minds. I got to work like 45 minutes ago, so I'm scrambling a little bit. And I asked the AI to give me the trajectory of horror, which I think is pretty interesting. I think that's like one of my favorite things to use the AI for. Like, I asked the trajectory of like alien movies with Spielberg a couple weeks ago. That's just that data. Is absolutely love. I'll read that at the end of your time, and I'll tell when I use AI information. First, he was what's the 80s thing? 80s monster. And well, already mentioned it's the 80s slasher. I was born last month of 89, so I don't necessarily remember this, but is it from the serial killer fears, like the late 70s, was when the serial killers started popping off, and then all of a sudden you get Halloween with Michael Myers, and then the 80s are just full of all the derivatives of Michael Myers. Jason's kind of the aesthetic thing we see because he has like a cooler version of the mask, but the Michael Myers is kind of the prototype. Just kind of this thing. He doesn't even run. He just kind of walks menacingly, and you can't outrun it. It's just always going to be around, and they call him the Shape. And later on, it gets more supernatural and stuff. But just the real serial killer fear happened in the late 80s, manifested in serial killer movies in the late 70s, manifested in the serial killer movies in the 80s. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it feels like that's the space. Like definitely that 80s trope of, Jason with the knife kind of walking and you're running and he's still gaining on you and the rest of that, like that sort of slasher fear. But I think you're right, because there was that 60s into the 70s serial killer menace, that was kind of the Summer of Sam, it was Ted Bundy. It was like all just the really weird, crazy stuff going on that kind of brought to light the idea of these serial killers and these monsters living among us. I mean, that right there makes a ton of sense. And I think you may be right in terms of what the 80s is, even though being born at the end of the 80s, hey, you're more in tune to it than I was.
No. Is my internet okay?
Yeah, you were good. It warbled in the first little bit there, and I was going to tell you hang on for a second, but then it cleared up. You're good.
Okay. You were just wobbling for me, and then you cleared up too. So if I start doing it again, just cut me off. I don't want to ruin the show. Yeah, for me, like I big fear. Like I like listening to horror stuff, and I like looking up horror lore and everything. And there's a cool podcast. It's Too Scary Didn't Watch, and it's just people explaining, like one person in the podcast watches the movie and then explains it to two people who are too afraid to watch them. My big thing is gore. I don't want to see the blood and guts and stuff, and I feel like that's from being a child and hearing the stories of I remember vividly, I was like 6 or whatever, and my neighbor's like, oh yeah, I saw Scream, which isn't even necessarily that scary of a movie, but I remember like, oh yeah, there's a girl and she was in the bathroom urinal, and she heard a noise and she put her face up against the wall of the urinal, and all of a sudden a knife just comes through and stabs her through the face. And I was like 5 or 6. I'm like, whoa, I don't want to see that kind of jump scare and stuff. And then when I was a teenager in like the early 2000s, mid 2000s, became like the torture porn stuff, and that Saw and Hostel and all, like the gore became the big thing. Gore was the thing. So I kind of avoided, like I'm doing a lot of like backlogging, back work for my horror movies, because that's my biggest gaps in my movie list and stuff. But you were talking about the vampires and kind of the sexification of vampires and Twilight and everything. And I know you're a big Anne Rice guy, and Anne Rice might be the kind of ground zero for the sexy vampire and stuff. Obviously, the Nosferatu into Dracula type of thing, but Anne Rice really brought the sexy vampire stuff. And then that moved into Lost Boys. Like Lost Boys kind of took the sexy vampire from Anne Rice, and then Buffy took the sexy vampire thing from Anne Rice, and then directly from Lost Boys. Like Lost Boys to Buffy is like a one little nudge over. They have the weird deformed faces when they turn into vampires and stuff. So they have a monster form and a sexy, alluring like predator form. But Buffy has like comedy. It's kind of the prototype for the MCU, which is like jokey. And there's also fight scenes, which I liked as an early teenager and stuff. It had the superhero-ness of it. But there was like 5 minutes in each episode where it's melodrama. But, oh, I'm a teenage girl and I'm in love with the vampire who has a soul and he's 250 years old. Like, my life sucks, that kind of thing. And then, so the Vampire Diaries, which came out in the mid 2000s, took those most boring 5 minutes of Buffy and made a whole series about that. So there's no fight scenes and stuff. It's just, and there's no monster faces. It's just sexy vampires and melodrama of falling in love with these two vampires and stuff, which I didn't really watch. And then Twilight is basically the same time, and that's just like the Buffy Angel dynamic for the whole thing. And those vampires can even go out in the sun and they sparkle and everything. And now, right now, the Vampire Lestat came out, or is about to come out in this week, part of the AMC Anne Rice universe, and it's back to like it's peak sexy. It's like I'm a star. I'm a rock star now. I'm a rock star, and it's just like, I don't know. So that's Anne Rice might be the reason we have all this the sexiness. You know? If you read the books, it's definitely chock full of sexiness in those books. Like it just oozes out of the way she wrote. And also on AMC they have the Mayfair Witches kind of recently. Yep. What's the other one? I want it, not slasher. It's something like that. It's it'll come to me in a moment.
Go ahead.
There's the regular the vampire the interview with the vampire, and then there's a spin-off, the Vampire Lestat, which is coming out this week. Yeah, then you said Mayfair Witches, and then there's one more. You're right. I can't think of what it is.
Lasher. Lasher. Dragon Rose has her back. Lasher. Yep, that's what it's called.
The Telemachus or whatever it is, like the group.
Talamasca. Yeah, the Talamasca. Yep.
Talamasca. Yeah, David Show too. And then so the zombies kind of took a similar thing. There's like voodoo zombies, which aren't really necessarily living dead. They're kind of just like mind wiped and controlled by like a sorcerer type of thing. Those early zombies. And then you kind of get the George Romero Living Dead, Night of the Living Dead. Those are like undead people type of zombies. And then but they weren't sucking your brains out. They weren't eating brains. They were just trying to kill you. And then you get the brain eaters coming out. It's more kind of the 70s, late 70s, 80s. And then in the 90s, early 2000s, you get the fast vampires. The fast zombies. And then World War Z, it's kind of like a hive mind zombies and stuff. So that could be like, and all of it could be just, Dawn of the Dead, the original Dawn of the Dead takes place in a mall and stuff. It's commercialization and kind of just people losing themselves and becoming mindless and that type of stuff. And there's also the aspect of just mowing down like these things that look like humans with like something visceral about that for humanity for some reason, which is kind of creepy to me. But right now we're in a moment where there's like a new thing happening with like Gen Z, even like Gen Alpha horror. With the movie Obsession came out, which doesn't necessarily fit into this, but it's like a new wave of horror. It's like breaking all these records. But then the movie Backrooms came out this past weekend, and that's the #1 movie in America. It beat like Mandalorian and Grogu and all that kind of stuff. It's based on a creepypasta, like a 4chan thing, which like from the mid 2010s. And then this is the youngest. The director is 20 years old. He's been working on these different videos on YouTube for like 4 or 5 years, and then got approached by E24. So he's the youngest #1 like movie of the weekend director in history, based on this creepypasta thing. So I'm not fluent in the whole lore, but essentially somebody in creepypasta like posted this picture of this like 80s style empty cubicle type of thing, and it was basically like this was kind of weird, and it created this little mythology about it, something called the Backrooms, and it's being called liminal space horror or liminal horror. And I have a little blurb I'll read about it in a second, but it's basically like collective online folklore and participatory fables, which I think is interesting, and that's what kind of Gen Alpha and young Gen Z is latching on to. It's like they're completely obsessed with the lore, and there's no origin. We don't know who was the first person to post a picture of it, but people kind of add on to it. It's very Slender Man type of thing, but it's a world. It's like a realm that people are kind of exploring through these fables and stuff. But it's called liminal horror, and we're in a liminal space, like in general, in like humanity and stuff. So maybe their horror is this liminal horror, that they're the liminal space between physical reality and then being born on the internet, this digital reality, or they're in this liminal space where they're stuck at home. And I don't know, like we're in this liminal space that's happening right before the singularity and stuff, that we're in a liminal spot in humanity, and it's manifesting in this new type of horror called liminal horror, which just like synchronistically just became the #1 movie in the world. It's like it's all of my newsfeed. It's like this is a moment in the history of horror, like something new is happening in Hollywood with horror. So think about that.
Yeah, I think we're all of this space, like I said, is we have so much going on in the modern moment that all of that is what would you call it? I don't know. It's like the ultimate mind screw, I guess. I don't know what we're doing to ourselves, which is the worst part of this. Like, because we can live without these fear cycles and all the things that continue to happen. Sorry, I got distracted there. I was looking this up because Linda asked in the thing. She's all, WTF is what's a creepypasta? So just real quick. So creepypasta is paranormal stories, creepy original horror fiction. It's a website called creepypasta.com. It started on other places, Reddit and some other places that were not its own website, but that's what it is. And I linked the newer website in the chat there. But so sorry about that. A little distracto as part of it. But yeah, I mean, go ahead. What else you got? Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Thank you for the context. And I was just trying to find it in my notes, but I did ask because I haven't seen the movie, and I don't want to ramble too much about this, but it's important to bring up, I think. What is it? So this is from the AI. What is it? Liminal horror equals fear of, quote, in-between places that feel familiar but wrong, like empty malls at night, yellow office hallways with no people, school corridors in summer. The back rooms is the mascot. The 2019 4chan meme about no clipping, quote unquote, no clipping out of reality into infinite empty offices with moist carpet and buzzing lights. The monster isn't a creature. The space itself is a monster. Why is it blowing up in 2026 and why is it bizarre? It just went mainstream. A24's backrooms opened May 2026 to $81 million. This was a few days ago. Biggest original horror debut ever. 50% of the audience is under 25. It's the first myth born fully online. 4chan to Reddit to YouTube to theaters. No book, no author, just collective dread. It's the 2020s anxiety on screen. Post-COVID, we all lived in the, quote, empty airport at 2 a.m. life. Had dead malls, dead-end gig work, like Uber driving, all that kind of stuff. At the endless scroll, the news feed, the fear of being stuck in transition, not as a kid, not as an adult, or not a kid, not an adult, not analog, not post-human, bureaucracy with no humans. Gen Z's ghost story. The parents had Chuck E. Cheese, but they got a photo of it empty. That's kind of the aesthetic of it. It's like they hear all the stories about the 80s culture, and they just get to see it 40 years removed in these creepy, like dead malls and that kind of stuff. That's kind of the basis of it. The banality is the horror. Just fluorescent hum, mono yellow, and 600 million square miles of empty office. No villain, no exit, no plot, just you forgotten. And that's why it spreads. It's too weird to be fake, too boring to be fiction. The bottom line for 2026, we used to fear Dracula in the castle. Now we feel the castle is empty, infinite, and no one's coming to find you. Liminal horror says that the scariest thing isn't death, it's irrelevance in your own life, which I think is like wild.
I do appreciate the mall being a not really a mall kid because it was so far from where we live, but it's certainly the idea of these things coming back and being forgotten. It's named very well in what you described there, and I wish I had my initial thought on it before I got distracted. I got distracted in three different ways, but the liminal horror is super fantastic, and I think nothing really screams that exact thing other than an old abandoned shopping mall that used to be the hub of the town square, which is now sort of just desolate and literal tumbleweeds rolling through the parking lot. I mean, it's horrific in some of those places.
I mean, I didn't think about it till right now, but it fits into that dream thing we talked about, of that big shared dream everyone's having of these weird empty malls that are kind of collapsing and stuff. So we're living kind of like obviously the mall went to Amazon and went to online. So we're living in this kind of dead physical space as we're transitioning into a digital reality. That's liminal in and of itself. And then these people are digital natives, kind of hearing the echoes of the heyday of physicality but we're not in the heyday of digitalness yet. So they're kind of, they're worried their whole lives going to be like this. And they're just, all they know is the doom scroll. All they know is the kind of funkiness that's been going on the last 20 years. Like they're all under 25 and stuff. So it's like, and the lore and the back rooms itself represents like the infinite labyrinth that is the human mind and the subconscious and stuff. So there's that, and there's Lovecraftian-esque monsters, and it is very Lovecraftian in that. So then, like, why is this happening? Why the changing of it? Why is this like this? This is still for me. I'll get to the AI thing in a minute. So maybe as like a defense mechanism. Maybe like when like if a person is staring into the darkness, people are afraid of the dark. It's kind of like a core fear. If there's a shape in there, they can sense something in there, dread in there, staring into the abyss or whatever, and they're trying as hard as they can to see what it is, to like squint their eyes or just like have their eyes adjust or whatever. Just what is that thing? Is there something in there? What is it in the dark? Maybe that's what's happening with humanity. So if you look at the trajectory of how like the 1,000 faces of a monster and stuff, to how it changes. If you zoom way out, it's just the equivalent of the collective consciousness of humanity staring into the darkness, squinting, trying to make sense of what it is. And that changes based on like how our focus going in and out, kind of our eyes adjusting, or if like just our filter changes, like the time and the period and stuff. And then what do you think about that before I end it with my reading of the AI thing, which I think is worth it? What do you think about that?
Yeah. Go ahead, James. Go ahead.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. It's just really weird here because I've found at least one account of someone who had a visitation dream from a loved one where they were in a mall together, and the person that had the dream felt like they had to leave, and their loved one could not leave this mall. It was like that was the version of an afterlife for them. Also, this liminal space horror is fascinating because so often when it comes to paranormal experiences, hauntings or whatever, they happen in, where do they happen? Empty places, empty spaces, which is just really fascinating that this is something that's coming about now. I just do some mindless building or just clearing space in Minecraft. I saw a reference already on their like start page to that whole backrooms thing. Not even kidding. I saw that today.
It's huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what's weird about that too, real quick on the back rooms is remember in the Matrix they have like the back doors. So the Matrix is like the real world, and they have those back doors in those like empty office buildings where they seem to be those endless hallways, and you have to get the key master to kind of open them up, and you can teleport essentially. Yeah. I mean, it looks very much like that idea that you guys are talking about.
Yeah, I think it's basically like that, and it's like, but it's like it's a physical place that you feel like you're in, but I think it's a metaphor for the mind. So you kind of just all of a sudden you just like fall through the floor or something like that. You end up in this empty office building that every time you go through another door, it opens up. It's like it's just infinite spaces, but they're all like, I don't know, they're all corridors and corners, and just can't see around the corner, which is I think poetic for being right before the singularity, or just the dread of the infinite doom scroll which these kids have been living in their entire life. It seems like the banality of life, and it's a weird thing. So then I asked the AI, give me a trajectory of the 20th century and 21st century horror. I'll try to read it quickly as I can. The O's to 1910s, stage fright and early film shadows, dominant monsters, ghosts, mad scientists, Jekyll and Hyde. Why? Because of silent film, stage melodrama, the sympathetic grotesque template, and it's based on influences from Gothic novels, vaudevillian phantoms, monsters they were deformed humans. It was like the grotesquerie of humanity. It wasn't supernatural yet. In the 20s, you get German expressionism nightmare. Dominant monster becomes Nosferatu, Count Orlok, Phantom of the Opera, The Man Who Laughs. That's post-World War I trauma plus German expressionism. Sunlight kills vampires. The ugly villain with romantic narrative. And that's what you get the basis of Joker, is The Man Who Laughs type of thing. 1930s, Universal's golden age. That's dominant monsters, Dracula, Frankenstein, the Mummy, yada yada. And that's why? Because of the sound films and Great Depression escapism. So it was fun. It was cool. It was innocent fears, you know. A tuxedo Dracula, flat-headed Boltnik monster Frankenstein, that kind of stuff. 1940s, wartime Wolfman and monster mashups. Dominant monsters were the Wolfman, Mummy's Ghost Hand, Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. The World War II anxiety into shape-shifting threats with Lon Chaney's Wolfman, looking like lycanthropy, bipedal, clothed, not full wolf, but part monster. And you get into the franchise. 50s atomic age creature features, dominant monsters Godzilla, creature from Black Lagoon, The Fly. Why? Because the nuclear fear and the sci-fi boom, Gothic monsters faded, radiation created beasts instead. And you see that in comics too, with like Marvel. Like that's the difference between the early DC and early Marvel, is that one was mythology, one was science gone wrong. 60s are psychological and sold to kids. Dominant monsters were Psycho, Norman Bates, Birds, Rosemary's Baby, Antichrist. The monsters moved inside the home, inside the mind, and then Romero brought in the flesh-eating zombies. 70s was Satan, slashers, Nature's Revenge, The Exorcist, Leatherface, Jaws, Michael Myers, Alien. Post-Vietnam, Watergate, urban crime, evil invades sacred spaces like home, church, suburbs. Jaws moved the monster to real animals and stuff. So folklore went from supernatural to slasher. 80s was slasher, FX Beast, suburban boogeyman, Freddy Krueger, Jason, yada yada. Why? Reagan era MTV, or Reagan era plus MTV plus practical effects peaked a little bit. So it's kind of back to the Universal monsters. So it was fun. It was we had the technology for it. 90s were urban legend and meta horror, where like they had 15 years of slashers and stuff, so they decided to get meta with it. Monsters became social commentary. Then 21st century, the 2000s had the fast zombies, torture porn, J-horror, Japanese horror. So it's just a kind of evolution. Ghosts went viral, literally. So cursed VHSs, emails, zombies sped up, vampires split into like the super scary versus super romantic. 2010s is the internet folklore, elevated horror, and the zombification of everything. So that's more, it's like these internet fables, and it's prestige-y. So like, it kind of went back to the creepiness of it. And then the creepypasta brought things like Jeff the Killer, Babadook, all this type of stuff, different movie studios. Why? Because the internet became the perennial writer for stories. Slender Man, that type of thing. 2020's pandemic age and mimetic monsters, and then some added clown stuff. So why COVID, isolation, plus TikTok. So it's the internet as an ultimate storyteller, plus these like claustrophobic post-pandemic fears, and the fear of the other, and the fear of this invisible enemy that people, if you were 10 years old, spent like your first formative 4 years being to there's some kind of invisible enemy hiding right around the corner. And all of a sudden we get liminal horror with some kind of monster that you can feel, but you can't see because everything is a empty warehouse with a corner around it.
With a mind screw. Hey, before you go, real quick, this is from the write-up here, the next paragraph that I was just about to get to. It bookends exactly what you're saying. So the slasher arrived in the late 70s and peaked in the 80s, and it is a very specific creature of its moment. The suburbs, like you said, had been sold as the solution, the safe distance from the city's chaos, the lawn, the cul-de-sac, the neighborhood where everyone knows everyone. The slasher film said the neighborhood is where it happens. The killer is local. He knows the layout. He was here before you moved in. The monster slot in the Reagan era was filled by the discovery that the safe place wasn't, that the American domestic dream had something wrong in its foundation that the architecture was covering. And perfect book in there on what exactly what you were saying, because you started with that, and that was the next spot in this space. But yeah, fire stuff. What else you got? Go ahead.
Exactly. No, that's it. And just so now all those safe places, those comfort spots, have turned empty and turned desolate, and what's hiding in the shadows, and then it's representative of the mind in this liminal space we are in reality with humanity, and at every, like with the internet and AI and all kind of stuff. Wild show, good stuff.
You're the best.
Rambling,
no, you're good. You're good. Your fire is always fantastic. I'll appreciate that very much. Derek in Massachusetts, the Night Stalker. You know him, you love him. Go give him a follow. TroubledMinds.org. Click the friends or /friends. Scroll down. It's under N Night Stalker. It's all alphabetical. Hang tight, Cy. You get as much time as you need. Thanks for your patience. Night Stalker. There you go. Right there. Go follow his YouTube channel. Let's encourage him to make more content and think about these ideas with us, and share some other things that maybe some Night Stalker threads that we haven't heard yet. 702-857-6939. This is Troubled Minds. I'm Michael Strange. Be right back. More from James. We got Cy coming up, and your calls as well. Do not go anywhere. More Troubled Minds on the way.
This is Troubled Minds. Your host, Michael Strange, the master of the mysterious, is here to guide you through the shadows of the unexplained.
Let's check the news. A new study published in the journal Environmental Microbiology is challenging the way scientists think about something as ordinary as a foggy morning. Researchers at Arizona State University found that fog droplets contain bacterial concentrations comparable to those found in the ocean, roughly 10 million bacteria per thimbleful. One type of bacteria in particular was observed actively growing and feeding on formaldehyde and other pollutants during fog events. The lead researchers now describe fog not as a weather condition, but as a living habitat, a finding they say could complicate proposals to harvest fog as a source of drinking water. Turning to artificial intelligence and medicine, a growing body of research suggests AI chatbots are not just keeping pace with doctors on diagnostic accuracy, in some cases they're pulling ahead. A 2026 study found that a leading AI model achieved a 78% accuracy rate on complex cases drawn from the New England Journal of Medicine, outperforming experienced emergency room physicians. But medical researchers caution that diagnosis is only half the equation. The deeper challenge, knowing how to manage a patient's care given their full individual circumstances, remains a nuanced skill that AI has yet to fully replicate. And finally, a study presented at the 2026 Lunar and Planetary Science Conference is exploring one of the more provocative questions in the search for life beyond Earth. Could life from our planet have already reached Venus? A team from Johns Hopkins University and Sandia National Laboratories modeled whether rock and debris blasted into space by asteroid impacts on Earth could survive the journey through space and disperse into the cloud layers of Venus. Their calculations focused on large impacting space rocks and how the resulting fragments would drift within the atmosphere of Venus. Certain cloud layers on Venus maintain temperatures and pressure surprisingly hospitable to microbial survival, and the researchers suggest that, at minimum, organic material of Earth origin could persist there briefly, potentially a few days per century. Thanks for listening to the Troubled Minds Radio Network.
Indeed. Shout out the Knights of the Storm, the real Jason Barker and crew. Thanks for popping over on the raid on Rumble. What's up? We got, I love the name, Alien Poop Evolution. And apparently we call him Ape for short. That isn't the most epic name I've ever heard. I'm not sure what is. What's up, Hiker Gordo? I see you guys. What's up, Sweets? Who'd I miss? Have I missed anybody over there? Nostradamus, I see you. If I missed anybody, just say hi. Real Jason Barker. How you doing? Thank you. Appreciate it very much. And yeah, what's up? Doc Spoiler is here. Good evening, guys. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for being part of this. And thanks for enjoying Weird Conversations by Dark of Night. It is our way these days. Who else did I miss? MJ is here. What's that? The empty liminal grocery store. Hell's right. What's up, MJ? Sylvain. If I missed anybody, just say hi. I'll say hi back. We got Jay Winch, Matt Sal. What's up, Karen Rocks, Joey, and Cy coming up. Joe in Florida. Here we go. Troubled Minds happening right about when I find this button. Let's go. Welcome back to Troubled Minds. I'm your host, Michael Strange. Yada, yada, blah, blah, blah. All the places, all the things. We're taking your calls tonight. I'm calling this Monster Season, the shape of the fear. Now, the reason is because we've got a monster season coming up. We'll talk about that as we go over the next 5 weeks because there's something brewing. Yeah, there's something brewing. We'll fill you in on that. And actually, as a teaser, let's talk about Ricky's stream tomorrow real quick. Go check that out. It's going to have Derek the Night Stalker, who just called in, but he's going to kind of just be there with Ricky and with James and just riffing and firing and bringing Night Stalker ideas. So go check that out. He's going to start a firestorm of amazing ideas that will carry us basically through 5 weeks. Yeah, trust me on that. Anyway, love to hear your thoughts. I'm calling this Monster Season tonight, the shape of the fear. What do you know about it? Appreciate you, James. Thanks for being patient. I'll get back to you in a moment. Cy's been waiting a long time. Let's go to Cy on the Discord. What is going on? Welcome back. It's been a minute. Thanks for being part of this. Thanks for being patient. You're on Troubled Minds. How are you, my man? Go right ahead.
Hi, yes. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm barely through a very hellishly early coffee right now, so apologies if I say something very thick. No, just listening to what everybody else has said. There are lots of people identifying fears and the way the fears have changed through the ages. And it's quite important to address why these things change and also who's changing them. So for the most part, as far as I can see, fear is a sort of grand shaper of narrative for society or for ages in history. We all do it, even throughout the course of one's life. When you're very little, you're scared of the dark. And then when you get older, you discover things that you're really afraid of, like taxes.
Don't get me started.
Yeah. And now, nowadays there are a list of things that are permissible to be afraid of. Pandemics, yes, you can be afraid of that. Terrorism, yes. The economy, yes. And there are also things that people get ridiculed for being afraid of. God, demons, monsters. And these are all things we used to be encouraged to be fearful of. And although it's shifting now, for the longest time, if you were afraid of or conscious of the possibility of, as you were saying, sort of aliens and grey aliens sort of either descending upon us or already among us, that was seen as something to ridicule, in the same as being afraid of monsters in the dark under your bed. And just sitting here listening to everybody else, all of the fears that are now acceptable are tangible. As I said, sort of the economy, terrorists, pandemics, war, pestilence, death, all of those grand narrative fears. But it doesn't seem to be acceptable. And by acceptable, I just mean, sort of part of the main sphere of thought for any of the unknowable or ethereal fears. And I just find that quite curious. Because if you went back, I don't know, 150 years, and from then until the beginning of time, or the beginning of human time, those kind of fears were totally acceptable and accepted. You know, you were told actually those spirits in the forest were real. God, demons, etc. are real. You must be afraid. Why is it that only very recently, in you know, a heartbeat in the human existence, suddenly those things just don't count anymore? I just find that a very, very, very strange concept.
Yeah, and not only that, so they do. I think they're discounted quite a lot. I mean, look, you know me, I'm not a religious person, but I do see that there is a spiritual war happening in the information space and our mind space. And so even kind of casting all that aside, you know, it doesn't matter what I believe, as I always say, because, you know, the truth of the cosmos is what it is. And it doesn't matter what a singular human belief system really kind of brings to that table, the cosmic table. But beyond that, if we're dealing with these ancient ideas that are based on experience and intuition and thousands of years of humans living and dying, I don't know, like I tend to give a little bit of weight to some of that stuff, more than an academic or a modern scientific mind and materialist might give to that. Because I think, as I've always said, the wisdom of where we came from, our ancestors, should play quite a bit more as in this modern space. But here we are instead, talking about all these other things because it's their narratives. Like you said when you first started, is that we are dealing with the fear cycles that are meant to control us, and so they're telling us what to be afraid of. And it's unfortunate. It's frustrating, and I think it's important to talk about these ideas for exactly that reason.
No, 100%. And you're exactly right. It's the fears shape how we view things, and also who is in. It's difficult to say who's in charge of what we're afraid of, but you understand what I mean. Who is sort of shaping that has shifted in exactly the same time span. It used to be communities, the small region of England where I'm from, there were local legends about specific places, specific happenings. But now we don't operate on that scale anymore. We operate on a global scale, to a lesser extent, a national scale. There are no local legends anymore in that sense. And as the Night Stalker was saying, all of the sort of monsters of old, they've just been reduced to film and TV shows. It's not real. It's on the screen. You don't need to be afraid of it. And I there is a sort of atavistic root to all of these old fears. And I find it very hard to believe that they were just all wrong. And in the last 100 years, we've suddenly turned the page and we don't need to be afraid of any of them anymore. And then you have the new and emerging fears. For example, aliens, although arguably that's not emerging. That's been written about for several thousand years. But that for a long time, that was suppressed as a fear that, everybody knows what happens when you try and tell somebody don't be afraid of something. It often makes them more afraid of it. And that's really all I had to say, is not just what were the monsters, but why were the monsters and who's telling you what they are. Yeah, well said. And not only that, it's funny you said, be not afraid, right? That the biblically accurate angel, be not afraid, is like this, multi-eyed, like spherical, like glowing, like, oh, okay, totally cool. I won't be afraid at all, huh? Wink, wink. Yeah. And whether you believe that stuff or not, it's irrelevant. It's certainly deeply metaphorical in that sense of, if you're confronted with something that is legitimately mind
jarring, bending an experience, in terms of, we talk about aliens on the show, obviously, and that sort of experience of whatever that moment is, the contact of whatever that happens to be, certainly that sticks, and certainly it changes you forever. And as you guys know in the intro of the show, it says you're here for a reason, and that's exactly the point. Because many of the people that are here that have been part of these conversations have had some experience, some way that changed their life forever and made them see the world so differently. And there's no going back once you see some of these things. And I don't know, man. Like there's definitely a weird space here with us being afraid, and then also on top of that, trying to conjure our own fears as part of it. I mean, we're building our own folklores with the creepypastas and some of these other things, which is good. We need to be storytellers as part of the larger contextual conversation of humanity. No doubt. It's probably the most effective way to communicate. Beyond that, we're dealing with the information war of what we're, as you described very smartly, what we're told to be afraid of. So I don't know what to make of it other than us talking to each other is one of the best ways of this. Bro, where you been all our lives? Welcome back. Glad to have you. I know you're over there, and the time zone is so brutal for the UK and this show.
Yeah, it took an early morning airport trip to actually have me awake at this hour.
Yeah, it's so brutal. Like, so we start at 7. There's literally an 8-hour swing, so that means at 3 a.m. is when this show starts for you. Yeah. That's absurd. Yeah. That's absurd. So thank you for, spending some of that time that you had when you're awake, smashing a coffee and getting in here with us and sharing your ideas. Anything else to add, or anything for James, for our friend Cy here before he goes?
Yeah, the not being afraid thing. I mean, obviously, like you all both are talking about there. Yeah, aliens, ghosts, monsters throughout this last 50, 100 years or whatever. It has been reduced to, well, it's all fiction. You can be afraid of the fiction, but you don't have to be afraid in real life because it's not real. And yet, again, people throughout time have had experiences. They're still having experiences, and it's not just the. It's funny because it's not just the whole biblical reference saying don't be afraid. There are some reports throughout time to the present day where people say they encounter beings that tell them the same thing, even as they're being paralyzed or just unknown creatures are approaching them, or just lights. And what are you going to do? Of course, there's a good chance you're going to be afraid. So, yeah, all this is really fascinating. And great call from you as well, Sai.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I've got nothing else to add other than to say it's great to actually come on and say hi to everybody, rather than listening on Spotify a couple of days later.
Amen. Appreciate you again, just peeling out some time when you had it to come say hi, and you're welcome back anytime. You know where to find us. Okay. Rest well when you do. Thank you for listening on Spotify. Yeah, thanks for chiming in now, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Cheers.
Appreciate it very much. There you go. Hey, like I always say, do you really think there's any smarter group of people on the entire interwebs anywhere? Of course, I'm biased, but listen to the ideas that come out of this space. It's incredible. And that's the point. That's the entire point. You get regular people talking to each other about extraordinary ideas, and look what happens. That's what happens. We have very smart friends. Yeah, wild stuff. We got a little bit of time left if anybody wants to jump in here. What do you think about the monsters? So, like I said, I'm calling this very specifically monster season for a reason. Because the next 5 weeks, I think we're going to have an unbelievable showcase of the zeitgeist raining monsters on our head. And I'll explain that as we go. Like I said, it starts tomorrow. Anything is possible. Ricky's stream with James and with Derek the Night Stalker. So go listen to that. If you can't catch it live, is it 5:30 p.m. Pacific? Do you know what the time is, James, on that stream?
Let's see here. It is 9:30 Eastern, so it'll be 6:30 Pacific.
Okay, 6:30 Pacific time tomorrow, Wednesday. So that'll be Ricky, that'll be James, that'll be Derek the Night Stalker. So tune into that, and if you can't catch it live, do catch the archive, because it's literally going to lead us down the road of the next 5 weeks. Trust me, I'll make the case on that. It'll blow your mind, because we sniffed this out as a group before any of this happened. Okay? All right. So there you go. The breadcrumbs start tomorrow on Ricky's stream, and consider it like the Marvel crossover comic world happening in this space. Anything else to add to any of that? What does Sai said, or anything else that came to mind, James? I've got some stuff to get to, of course, which I'll touch on in a sec.
Well, just, even without going into everything that Derek's going to talk about tomorrow night, you are right. We've been talking about this for years now. The whole idea of these narratives being used against us, the aliens being used against us. And it's fascinating because one of the things I always joke about, we joke about sometimes on the show and just in private chats, is that it's going to be wild when, however it goes down, if there's any kind of a false flag, like blue beam and or otherwise alien invasion that happens, people are going to be freaking out, and we're going to be the ones standing, going over to them and be like, hey, no, don't worry. This is not real. This is not what it appears to be. Also, on another note to that, what I'm kind of hoping for is that if that happens, the actual aliens will show up and just, stop it and say, hey, knock that off. That's not us. Don't pin this on us. That kind of thing. But the monster. Yeah, go ahead.
Just real quick, counter cosmic propaganda. They're like, hey, stop that. We're not doing any of that crap. Stop talking about us those ways.
Yeah, and I mean, hopefully, they'll be aware enough to realize it's not the entire human species doing that. Otherwise, we really will be in trouble. So hopefully, they're more intelligent than let's say the governments and organizations give them credit for. But yeah, the whole monsters thing, it is amazing how that has changed throughout time. But I like what Sai was saying as well about, for a long, long time, at least to large parts of the population of the planet, ghosts and other just creatures, they were real, or at least they were thought to be real. Even if you didn't have an experience, you knew someone that supposedly did have one. So to me, that's a big part of why I like looking into these things, because it seems like almost everyone has had an experience or knows someone that has.
Exactly. And imagine how much of that sort of network builds when the people that are too shy to describe their experience publicly, or even semi-publicly under a pseudonym or whatever. Imagine if people sort of lost the inhibition of people are going to think I'm crazy, right? Imagine how much of that would sort of flow out into the mind's eye, into the space of the modern zeitgeist. I mean, that to me is probably the most incredible part of all of this, because like you said, nearly everybody or some network therein has had some level of experience, certainly in this group, obviously, and many of these, high strangeness style groups. But beyond that, imagine all the people who are just holding it in because they don't want to say anything, because they'll just, people will say they're nuts. So that is probably a scaled aspect of what true reality is. But instead, you got to shut up or you're going to get fired from your job. It's welcome to a modern life, eh?
Yeah, when I first told my family, my uncle and my brother and my dad, that I was thinking of starting a podcast on all these subjects, my uncle and my brother thought it was hilarious. And we were sitting in this restaurant and just talking, and I mentioned it, and they kept on just going on and on, joking about it, laughing about it. And I did something I never do to older people in my family. I raised my voice to, and said, okay, well, I'm not talking about this with you anymore right now. And they got quiet, and they didn't say anything else about it for the rest of the time. And now they ask about it. They ask how everything is going, how I'm doing with the podcast. They're not interested in these topics. They never ask about what I think about all this, but they've seen that I'm serious about this, I guess. And they don't joke about it anymore. Yeah,
I mean, I think per usual, it's one of those things where, the alien probe stuff, like some of those jokes and, stuff like this, if you see a ghost, you're crazy. And I mean, that's exactly the point. It's like, come on now, these are literally stories that go back thousands of years, and people have been telling them in one way or another forever. So to me, like I said, I haven't had any notable enough experiences. I've had a couple I've told them from time to time on the show here or there. And by the way, just a reminder that when people repeat their stories, They're not making stuff up. Okay. If every time you have, we have a new show, you have a new story. Yeah, right. My eyebrows raise a little bit, but many of the people who've been part of this show forever will tell, the same story, the exact experiences they had, because they are experiences. There's something that happened to them. So that repetition is important because it is sort of that reality anchor of this high strangeness space. So, don't forget, like, this is, look, it's real enough for me to spend a ton of time doing this and talking about these ideas, because it is one of those parts of society that gets left behind. Because once again, you say, oh, I think I saw a ghost one time. And then people think you're insane. They start laughing at you, right? Like, okay, maybe it wasn't like a ghost, like a typical, ancient version of what a ghost is. We can talk about definitions all you want, but you get what I mean. They saw something anomalous that was worthy enough to bring up a discussion, despite the coming ridicule they knew was coming. So, like I said, I don't know. This stuff to me is very important for that space alone. Imagine all the people who don't say anything. It's probably in the billions. It's probably an absurd number worldwide. And here we are, kind of a fringe slice of the internet, which is wild to me because, people just don't want to be made fun of. And I get it. Make fun of me instead. Yeah. Anything else, James? Go ahead.
Well, even with the whole alien thing, that has been so, it's been turned into so many narratives that they're so well known that, oh, they're all good or they're all bad. Or take your pick of any narrative that is just really popular now. When you look into people's experiences with all these things, they don't always fit any or even one or two of the narratives that are out there about all this. So, and that's why it's important to keep looking into all those experiences and keep talking about them.
Amen. Which is what this is all about. As you know, extraordinary ideas, regular people talking about all of it creates this magical mix of, well, what we've been doing. Like, I don't have to sell you. You guys are already here. I appreciate it very much. Thank you for listening. I don't shout out the podcast feed enough. Shout out Cy. Appreciate the call. Thanks for, again, taking some time where you're up at a weird hour to call us and be part of this. Thank you for listening on the podcast feed. All of those that do. You're the lifeblood of this show. If you guys never found us and listened on a weekly basis, almost daily basis, we would have quit years ago. I personally would have quit years ago. So sort of the silent majority of this show is actually the podcast feed. So thank you for listening in all the places. It's going to be Spotify. It's going to be Apple, iTunes, wherever you get your podcast. But thank you very much for that. Yeah. And look, as we wind this down too, like I'm saying, we're moving into this space and this will get weird. Okay. So strap in. I think all of the zeitgeist moments we talk about on the show, kind of trying to spot things before they happen, sort of trying to look at history in a different way and kind of not necessarily reframe it as a new reality, but reframe it in our mind's eye as maybe a new possibility. All of that is coming to a head in this space. And I'll tell you why. Think of this. If you want to think about ritual magic in the larger contextual space of the world and the people doing those things, whether you believe in magic or not is irrelevant. Back to the Rohan principle, shout out Rohan. Rest in peace, my friend. Glad to have known you in this realm. He said that what's more terrifying, that ritual magic is real and they're using it against us, or that it's completely inert and phony and they're going through these bizarre, weird ritual motions anyway. I call that the Rohan principle. And it's, again, one of those mind screws in this space of like, okay, so what's actually happening here? And recognize it doesn't matter what you believe in that space at all. It is a philosophical construct. It's a question that will be eternal until you really truly know. And so in the next 5 weeks, go ahead and look at your calendar and you'll see exactly what I mean. In the next 5 weeks, there's going to be some wild stuff going down. I'm calling it now. It's already starting to happen. And we've already got the threads. So put that in your pipe and smoke it. There's the teaser for what's coming in the podcast in the next 5 weeks. And I'm telling you, if you think the Summer of Saucers shows, the past previous years, are something, this one's going to blow your socks off. because the threads are incredible. The synchronicities are spinning out of control. Okay? All right. First step is to tune in to Ricky's podcast tomorrow. Check it out. Anything to add, James? We'll wrap this up.
Just that it's amazing what, I haven't even been able to keep up with what you all have been posting and sharing in, multiple places and everything. So I'm really looking forward to being there and just if anything comes up, because I just can't keep up with it, visually. So I'm looking forward to talking with you all as this keeps on going forward and seeing what, if there's anything that connects just to what I do and what I've researched and all that, because it seems like it almost always does somewhere. And it's another synchronicity in and of itself when that happens. So thank you for letting me be on the show as always, and looking forward to tomorrow night. I cannot wait for that. It's going to be a lot of fun with Ricky and Derek.
There you go. You know what to do. Actually, while we're at it, troubledminds.org. Click the friends link, scroll down a little bit. It's alphabetical. Of course, follow James. He's there. Tomorrow, follow tonight, of course, if you haven't yet. But follow Ricky. It's right there. Rest in peace. Right next to Rohan. Rest in peace, Rohan. Right there. Click that. He's got a link tree. Go follow him in all the places. And Derek and James will be on that show tomorrow. And those breadcrumbs leading us to that 5-week space of wild, unbelievable stuff begins tomorrow. There's your teaser. Go check it out. I appreciate it very much. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for bearing with my boorish hosting. And thank you for just being part of this, part of the discussion and the ideas and sharing all of this together. That's the point. Regular people talking about extraordinary ideas. And like I said, do you really know a smarter radio group in the world? Like, I don't know. Like, you guys blow my mind every single night. So, I don't know. Shout out Cy. Appreciate you, again, peeling out some time outside of your typical waking time space to share some ideas with us. That's the whole point of this. Help our friends. troubledminds.org/friends. Do all the things, do all the places. Tune into Ricky's stream tomorrow. I will be tuned in. I will be in the chat. Go check that out. And take notes, because there's going to be some breadcrumbs laid that will blow your effing mind. We'll get to that maybe next week, maybe Sunday, maybe Tuesday. I'm not sure. We'll do a couple sort of one-off shows leading into that. But then there's this entire thread happening, which is undeniable. A synchronicity storm of epic proportions. Okay. If you want to help us help our friends, troubledminds.org/friends. Click the friends link, scroll down, follow those people. Look, if you enjoy what's happening here, it's not just me. It's not Troubled Mind. It is Troubled Minds, plural. Please go follow the people that have helped us show, that have made this show go, that have really contributed to and inspired me to coming back to do it again and again and again. That's what this is about. If you want to help us directly spread the word, let people know a conversation's happening where we're not going to tell you who to vote for. We're not going to chase down their narratives. Let them have it. Like, I don't care. I mean, I do care, but I think there are more important things happening in the human space, the human mind's eye, the larger zeitgeist that are missed. So let's talk about them. Let's cover them, because nobody else is. You'll see. Mark this date right now, today. Mark this date. The next 5 weeks, we will blow your mind, I promise. It's already there. It's already happened. We're now seers of the future. The crystal ball says yes. If you want to help us directly spread the word, let people know. As I said, a conversation's happening. We're not going to tell you who to vote for. That's not our narrative. We're not going to do it. If you want to help us directly, go to troubledfans.com. Buy some merch. Shout out people recently that have bought some merch. Thank you very much for that, which will be delivered soon. Watching the tracking at all the places, so thank you for that. That's that. Look, I don't know. And sorry about the camera. Like I said, it's broken tonight. We'll get it fixed and whatever. Well, hey, it's not a Troubled Mind show unless some technical thing breaks. So that's that. As we finish, it goes exactly like this. And this is for Cy. Thank you again for listening on the podcast so often. And thank you for popping in tonight on the weird schedule you've got. Fire stuff. And enjoy that coffee. Rest well when you do. Thank you, Sylvain. Shout out in all the places. You guys are the best. Thanks for sharing the shows. Thanks to all the mods out there that are pinning stuff. Shout out Sweets. Every time one of you guys calls in and starts talking, she's sharing your stuff in the chat. Gordo over there as well, and hiker emoji on Rumble. You guys are the best. Thanks for being patient and calm and chill and just enjoying what's going on. This one's for Sai. What's up, brother? Rest of all, when you do, appreciate the call tonight. Be sure, be strong, be true. Thank you for listening. From our troubled minds to yours, have a great night.